It was a gloomy October night when dark clouds were gathering in the sky and rain was falling steadily over the small town of Pineville. Mark, a 17-year-old teenager, and his younger sister Lily, 11, were at home. Their parents had left for an important meeting, leaving them under the supervision of a nanny who, for personal reasons, had to cancel at the last minute. The house sat at the end of a quiet street, surrounded by ancient trees that swayed in the wind in the impending storm. The lighting was dim in the living room, where Mark and Lily cuddled up on the couch, trying to distract themselves from the gloomy weather outside. Lily was nervous. She hated stormy nights, with thunder and lightning terrifying her. To distract her, Mark decided that watching a scary movie could be a fun way to face his fears. "How about we watch a scary movie to make the night more exciting?" Mark suggested, with a mischievous smile. He was determined to show his bravery to his younger sister. Lily looked at him with wide eyes. "Are you sure?" "I don't like horror movies." Mark laughed. "Lily, horror movies are made to be scary, but in the end, they're just made-up stories. It'll be fun, I promise." Reluctantly, Lily agreed, and they began choosing a movie from the many options available. They chose a horror classic that Mark thought would be scary enough to make the night memorable. As the film began, the room was plunged into darkness, with only the dim light of the television illuminating the room. The rain outside was falling heavily, producing a constant, monotonous sound. The brothers were engrossed in the plot, with the tension of the film gradually increasing. It was at that moment that the electricity flickered, plunging the room into darkness for an instant. Mark and Lily looked at each other, surprised by the sudden darkness, but soon the power was restored. The film continued to play, but an unsettling feeling began to hang in the air. As Mark and Lily watched the movie, the weather outside worsened. Strong winds made the trees creak and the rain fell more heavily on the windows. That's when something strange happened. A tall, slender figure appeared outside the living room window. Mark noticed her first and blinked to make sure her eyes weren't playing with him. The figure stood in the garden, just visible in the dim streetlight. Lily felt a shiver run down her spine. "Mark, what is this?" The figure was motionless, seeming to watch them with interest. Mark's mind began to work frantically, trying to find a logical explanation. Maybe it was a neighbor, a friend playing a joke, or someone who got lost in the storm. However, as the figure approached the window, a feeling of uneasiness came over Mark. The figure wore a worn and faded clown outfit with dark, disturbing colors. His face was hidden beneath a grotesque mask, painted white with dark, empty eyes. The sight of the clown in the window made Mark's heart race. He grabbed the TV remote and turned up the movie volume in hopes of ignoring the ominous figure outside. Lily was increasingly scared, clinging to Mark as a refuge of safety in that dark night. However, the clown's appearance outside the window didn't seem willing to disappear so easily. She started knocking lightly on the window, as if trying to get her brother's attention. A low, hissing laugh echoed from the figure, echoing through the living room, creating a frightening atmosphere. What did that clown want? What was happening? Questions swirled through Mark's mind as he and Lily stood still, watching the terrifying sight beyond the window in the midst of the storm. The night that began with the intention of being fun was about to turn into an unimaginable nightmare. Mark and Lily continued watching the horror movie, but the unsettling presence of the clown outside the window hung over them like a dark cloud. As the film's plot progressed, the clown's figure remained visible, his dark clothes and grotesque mask disturbing the tranquility of the room. The electricity flickered again, plunging the house into momentary darkness. When the light returned, the clown was closer to the window, now watching Mark and Lily with a fixed, unsettling expression behind the mask. Lily was on the verge of tears. "Mark, this isn't funny. Please make him go away." Mark was also distraught, but he didn't want to admit his growing sense of uneasiness to his sister. "Lily, it must just be someone playing a bad joke. They'll leave soon." However, the clown's laughter outside continued, a low, hissing laugh that seemed to echo inside the living room. Mark couldn't understand why anyone would pull such a scary prank during a storm. The clown's figure began to knock on the window more insistently, now producing a sharp and disturbing sound that reverberated throughout the room. Mark felt a shiver run down his spine as he realized the figure was trying to communicate something. Lily grabbed Mark's arm, her eyes filled with fear. Mark, what does he want? Please call the police. The idea of calling the police started to seem more sensible, but the electricity failed again, leaving them in total darkness for a brief moment. When the light returned, the clown was now much closer to the window, his hand pressed against the fogged glass. The clown's laugh echoed in the living room, a sinister, hissing laugh that seemed to echo from all sides. Mark began to question his decision not to call the police sooner. Determined to face the unknown, he grabbed his cell phone, but before he could dial the emergency number, the house's lights failed again, plunging them into complete darkness. The clown's laughter seemed to be closer than ever. Amidst the darkness, Mark and Lily felt trapped, with the clown's laughter echoing like a disturbing echo. Mark tried to calm his sister, but the tension in the air was palpable, as if something sinister was about to happen. Finally, the electricity returned, and they saw the clown outside the window with a terrifying expression through the fogged glass. His blank stare and grotesque mask disturbed Mark to the core. "I can't take it anymore, Mark. Please make him go away," Lily whispered, tears streaming down her face. The clown's laughter continued to echo, causing Mark to feel a shiver run down his spine. He knew he needed to make a decision, and quickly. It was clear that the shadowy clown's presence outside the window was far from an innocent prank. The situation was quickly spiraling out of control, and Mark was determined to protect his sister at all costs. With his heart racing, Mark picked up one of the lit candles that his mother used to decorate the room and slowly walked towards the window. The dim candlelight danced, casting ominous shadows around the room. Lily followed him, shaking with fear, holding tightly to her brother's arm. As they approached the window, they saw the clown outside, smiling sinisterly through the fogged glass. The figure dressed in the dark clown outfit with the grotesque mask seemed more disturbing than ever. The clown began to lightly tap the window with his gloved fingers, producing a high-pitched, disturbing sound. His hissing laugh continued to echo, as if mocking them. Mark held the candle burning in front of the clown's face, casting a ghostly light on the grotesque mask. He hoped this would drive away the terrifying figure, but the clown didn't back down. Instead, he continued to watch them with a blank, disturbing gaze. The situation was out of control, and Mark knew he needed to act. He turned to Lily and whispered, "Let's go to our parents' room. There, we can lock the door and call the police." Lily nodded, relieved at the idea of leaving the room where the clown's presence was most intense. Mark led the way with the candle, keeping it lit to illuminate the dark hallway. The clown's laughter still echoed, but it seemed more distant as they walked away from the room. When they reached his parents' room, Mark carefully locked the door, and they huddled together on the floor, where the candlelight created a somber atmosphere. The rain outside continued to fall heavily, and the sound of water dripping against the window added a macabre touch to the situation. Lily's breathing was rapid, and she clung to Mark as if her life depended on it. Mark tried to calm her, but the tension in the room was palpable, as if they were expecting the unimaginable. It was then that they heard an unsettling sound coming from the hallway. Shuffling footsteps approached them in the darkness. The clown's hissing laugh echoed, seeming closer than ever. Mark held the candle tighter, illuminating the bedroom door. The shuffling footsteps approached the door, and Mark and Lily held their breath. The clown's laughter seemed to echo directly from the other side of the door. The feeling of fear and oppression was almost unbearable. Mark was determined to protect his sister no matter what. He whispered to Lily, "Be quiet and don't make a sound. I'll get our parents' flashlight. If anything happens, you run out of the house and ask the neighbors for help. Understand?" Lily nodded, her eyes filled with fear. Mark slowly got up and headed towards his parents' room, keeping the candle lit to light the way. He grabbed the flashlight from the bedside table and quickly returned to the room where Lily waited. Before he could open the door, however, the clown's laughter grew even louder, echoing directly from the other side of the door. Mark found himself paralyzed with fear, the flashlight shaking in his hand. The shadowy figure of the clown was now within reach of the door, and his hissing laughter seemed to penetrate Mark's mind. In an act of desperation, Mark quickly opened the door and shone his flashlight toward the hallway. To his shock and relief, the hallway was empty. The clown was gone, as if he had never been there. The clown's laughter continued to echo in the distance, but it no longer sounded threatening. Mark and Lily looked at each other, trying to understand what had happened. That night's nightmare was far from over, and they realized that something dark and inexplicable was haunting them. The shadow clown had revealed himself as a real threat. The night seemed to hold unimaginable horrors that were far from being revealed. Mark and Lily remained in their parents' room, trying to understand what had happened. The clown's hissing laugh still echoed in the distance, but at least the shadowy figure was gone, as if it had never existed. Mark approached the bedroom window and looked out. The storm continued, but the rain fell less intensely, as if nature itself was calming its fury. The city of Pineville was shrouded in a gloomy atmosphere, with empty streets and dark houses. Lily was sitting on the bed, her look still scared. "What was that, Mark? Why did he choose us?" Mark was at a loss for answers. He couldn't find a logical explanation for what they had experienced. "I don't know, Lily, but we're going to stay here until our parents get back. They should be on their way." They remained in the room, the tension in the air almost unbearable. The clown's hissing laugh seemed distant, but it continued to echo from time to time, like a reminder that the nightmare wasn't over yet. That's when they heard a disturbing sound coming from the living room. Shuffling footsteps and hissing whispers echoed through the hallway, approaching them. Mark took the flashlight and lit candle and boldly headed into the hallway, followed by Lily. When they reached the living room, the shadow clown was there, standing in the middle of the dark room. His grotesque mask and empty eyes seemed to stare straight at them. The clown's hissing laughter filled the room, and Mark and Lily felt trapped. Whatever that sinister figure was, it was determined to haunt them. Mark turned on the flashlight and pointed it toward the clown, hoping the light would scare him away. But the figure did not retreat. She advanced towards them, her laughter intensifying. Lily screamed, and Mark pulled her back, trying to shield her from the terrifying figure. The flashlight shook in his hand, the light dancing off the walls as the clown approached. "What do you want?" Mark shouted, his voice full of despair. The clown didn't respond. He just continued to laugh disturbingly. The shadowy figure was now so close that they could see the sinister glint in his empty eyes through the grotesque mask. In an act of desperation, Mark threw the flashlight towards the clown, but the figure caught it in the air and crushed it in his hand. The room was left in total darkness, and the clown's laughter filled the room. Mark took Lily's hand and pulled her towards the front door. They had no choice but to escape from that haunted house. The rain outside continued to fall, but they could not stay there. As they ran out of the house, the clown's laughter echoed behind them, as if chasing them. They ran down the dark and deserted street, not knowing where to go. The ominous figure seemed to be everywhere at once. Finally, they spotted a neighbor's house with the lights on. They ran there and knocked desperately on the door. The neighbor, an older man, let them in and called the police when he heard their story. The police quickly arrived and searched the brothers' home, but found no trace of the shadowy clown. The hissing laughter, however, still echoed in Mark and Lily's minds. The dark night with the shadow clown became an experience they would never forget. They survived, but the fear of the unknown would haunt them forever. The clown's figure had disappeared, but the mystery that surrounded it remained unanswered. The house, the apparition, and the secrets of that night would continue to haunt them, reminding them that the world hides unimaginable horrors. They survived a nightmarish night, but the scars of that encounter with the unknown would remain forever in their minds.